I like how we're discovering the rules or the guidelines on how to organize these things. So
Mhm.
what we're talking about is claims. So each time an organization makes a marketing statement about their product that is kind of a claim within Gulli Bot would take that as a claim, and it would be accepted until someone comes in and disagrees with it or has some evidence or reason to think it's not true. But you were asking about the most trusted mark and those kind of things. I would say that we need to include it if we think it provides value to the reader. Like if someone's going to say, "Oh, like if it is the most trusted mark," I think that should actually change the score a little bit. It might be outweighed by the other evidence, like if they don't do certifications, if they don't actually do testing, then it would be outweighed, but it'd be good to have it in there, unless we have so much claims like that it then becomes kind of distracting. So we
Mhm.
always think about the final reader and whether that information's useful or if it affects the score. Um, an interesting thing is from a marketing standpoint, I mean, from a legal standpoint, often those claims don't have to be true. Maybe the most trusted one may, I don't know, in the UK actually, you can't make claims like that. But in the US, when you say most, that's considered, last I heard, and mostly an opinion. And so you can say it about anything.
Oh, goodness.
So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, if what we probably should do is go ahead and put those in there.
Yeah. And then delete them afterwards if we
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah. Or just leave them. Yeah. Don't put them in the Gullibot thing, but have it in our research paperwork. Yeah.
Research paper. Okay. Okay. Well, that helps me expand how many claims I can put in
Mhm.
because most of the claims do come from their website and their promotional materials. And in looking at their website and the limited information they give you what they do, there are some instances where some do product testing, some evaluate the product testing the manufacturer does, so the onus is on the manufacturer to do XYZ,
Mhm.
and then they just assess it. So at some point, it just seems like if you do your own testing and you've got your own lab, is that better than if you just look at the brand, the manufacturer's testing results and decide from there?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I think if you ask most reasonable people, they would say it is better to have a third party doing the testing, right? So I would say that,
Meaning not the manufacturer.
yeah, not the manufacturer. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would say that although we need to look into those cases and see whether the manufacturer is supposed to have a third party group do it and just not the certifier, because that may be about the same. So what I would say is that in order to, so you have 4 different certifications or whatever, under each of those you would make sure you have a claim. And so in one it would say they do the testing, and they're a third party, and then the other one might say that would be a pro for them, and then on the other one it would be con saying that they don't do testing, or and then there might be a third one that says they do testing but it's done by the manufacturer. um, and so what we would do under that is we put a pro that says, hey, it's good that they say they're doing testing, and a con saying, well, can we really trust it? So we would need to, and the pro that they're doing it would probably, so basically that claim shouldn't be as weighted as high as the other ones,
Right.
and
But
the
it
other
still
and the
should
other thing
be
should be some
a
weight, right?
positive.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then we just need to make sure we explain beneath it with subclaims why it's a positive but not fully. So it would have a claim saying, yeah, that it's good that testing means they're more likely to make it, and maybe that one's twice as important. And then there'd be a con that says, well, it's internal testing, so there's no third party, and then that would give it a weight of like 75%, and the others would be 100, and the other one would be minus 100. So it
Got it.
should affect the scores appropriately.
Okay. All right. Well, then the two things that Vicky put in as pros are definitely things that GFCO claims to do. And the things that I put in as cons for this other entity, the process of getting certified is just one of many products sold by blah, blah, blah. They're a marketing company, which is owned by an even larger marketing company. So this is like, okay, I'm reading this going, This is a claim from a Reddit user who was looking into this particular entity certification, saying, what makes them a certification company? Is this just a marketing ploy? And so this is somebody saying, this is not me saying it, but they're saying it's a marketing company that's owned by an even larger marketing company, a consortium, that it's just one of many, this gluten-free certification is one of many certifications that they sell, if that makes sense. So that's what this guy is saying. So obviously that's a negative. This guy is saying this is not a valid certification mark, it's just a marketing ploy. So then it's a question of us doing the research to find out, is this really a marketing company? Like I thought it was something else, but is it really a marketing company? So this is a bad thing about this entity, but is it a true statement about this entity, a factual statement? So that's something that we could dig into further. The second one is another Reddit one. Compared to the GFCO certification scheme, this one tends to require a lot less testing for gluten. So if that's important to you, stick with GFCO certified. So that obviously is a pro for GFCO certification, because this person is claiming that testing is important and these people don't do testing. So I think I'll feel a lot better about establishing some main differentiations between these entities by going to their website first and seeing what they're claiming. Because it's harder to find conversations and claims in social media about them.
I think that's good.
Okay.
Now, and just to kind of mention in that line too, that's actually kind of multiple claims, and people often speak that way.
So
the
like
fact
break it
that
out?
well, I don't know that we need to break it out here, but for all of these, even though this is a claim out in the wild, the Gulli Bot often will not, they will state the claim in such a way that someone will recognize that it's the same claim, but it'd be written in a more useful way. So Gulli Bot might break that out into two or three
statements,
two claims. Like one person saying, well, it's a consortium, and it's like, well, I mean, personally, I don't think that's a negative thing or not. And then we may also decide that if this is just one claim and almost no one saw it, then is it worth cluttering it up if we're going to just debunk it? But if we think that people will find it useful, then we should probably include it.
Well, I think the first part is actually useful, and it's not just them. So saying that gluten-free certification is not the only type of certification offered by this entity. So
is that a pro or a con?
I know. I mean, yeah.
I mean, if they do multiple certifications, it might be a pro because they have more experience in different systems.
Or it might be a con because it's just them looking for new ways to make money, and they don't understand what gluten-free actually is.
I think I think we'd have to, I'm wondering I think we'll have to think about that one some more. There might be a way to make that claim a little bit more specific, because it's not really the fact. I mean, you'd want to make a claim. So I think you can make two claims out of that are more specific, and they cancel each other out. One is, they're not experts in this area because they watch multiple areas, but there's also saying is that they're experienced in doing multiple types of certifications.
They're probably experienced in the certification process, but so here's the other really crazy thing about certification of any kind. So I remember when I started getting involved in what became social media. It wasn't called social media when I was doing all this internet marketing stuff, but very soon as social networks came to the public view and they began to be used for communications and marketing purposes, and then somebody coined the name social media. But during that early stage, these two people decided to start a certification training in social media to certify social media consultants. Now, I had been essentially a social media consultant for several years before it became the bandwagon to jump on.
Right.
And some other colleagues and some other people I knew also had been doing it for quite a while. So these two people just stepped in. One of them happened to have a lot of experience on how to do certification training. That was like his business. It's like, create a certification. Here's how you do it. And you can make money by certifying other people in any area you want.
Yeah.
So this gal, who was a trusted personality, decided to jump on board and be the certifier with this guy's help.
Yeah.
And they were bashed like nobody's business because he was in the business of creating these, like, who says that you're the certifier? Like, what gives you it was just a business proposition. It was a business ploy. And so that is the nasty thing about certification is it just a business ploy? Is it just a marketing ploy? Or what are the qualifications that you have to actually be a certifier? So that to me is like a really slippery slope.
Yeah, I think we might include those in there, but they would most likely be either canceled out or such a low weight because you just don't have any information to judge the actual impact of that. Like for me, if I knew that this company did multiple certifications, I'd say, well, they do know how to organize information in a way to train and to measure people. I would think that as being actually better because if especially if you have an expert in the field and an expert in building certifications, that to me is the best of both worlds. It still may be just a marketing ploy, and maybe it's just a thin veneer. But I mean, if you looked at that person, the certification person, and you look at the other certifications they offer, and they're all kind of bunk, like they don't do any testing, then you can draw a conclusion. But if their other stuff is good and it's then hey, well, the people that are going through it, it's probably more thorough because they've seen it before. Which if you just had a person doing social media trying to create their first certification, it's like, are they even going to write a test? Do they know how to write tests? So
very interesting. Okay, so I think my assignment, from what I'm hearing, then is I should go back to the websites of the entities that I have been assigned and add the claims that they make from them, their claims. Then begin to see if there are patterns with the other entities. Are they all making claims about whether they do product testing or how? Are they all making claims about auditing a facility, or if they don't actually physically go and they just review paperwork? Are they setting up training for staff? And so then you kind of figure out what those steps are that they're doing, and they're claiming to do these things, and then begin to see who's doing them and who's not. And I think there we start to tease out, okay, well, if they're not doing product testing, what are they relying on? And then I think that'll affect the scores. Am I thinking about that the right way now?
Yeah, I think that's correct. And you'll notice some patterns where one company will make a claim and the other one won't address that topic at all. And then it could either be, we'll have to decide case by case basis, is there a con that they don't mention it? Or is just the fact that the other ones are pro that they do mention it going to change the scores enough to that's a thing? Actually, I'm thinking now it usually would need to be a con because assuming it's something that is important, because otherwise the scores, the way the numbers roll up, if you don't have a con, it assumes all the information's there. So
so it'd be incomplete information, which should be lesser. of an impact, a positive impact.
Yeah,
Okay.
so in the end, we'll do kind of what you were doing at the very beginning that I asked you to wait off on is kind of a matrix that has all the claims and then each company across the top that says, what do they have in there, so that we know, okay, we have these three pros on each company. We need to put the con on the other one or whatever. But after we gather the data, we can kind of do that, decide if it needs to be done. It may be obvious enough that, as
Okay.
we find a pro, we just look and see whether that con exists, pro or con exists. And they're all going to say it slightly differently, right? So there's a lot of work in
Yeah.
realizing
Yeah.
that.
So, okay, I'll add claims from the website of what they claim they do and make note of what's missing. Then I'll add marketing claims as well. So any sort of marketing language they're using where they're making statements and claims. Yeah, because finding the steps that they take or don't take on other people's websites, it's varied and inaccurate. So I'm just going to go straight to the sources. Okay, good.
Yeah, and it's not that important that we find an actual claim that someone said it.
Okay.
Even
So
if we're just logically thinking, I'm reading this and I'm seeing a glaring error, that's we don't need a quote from someone in this system.
okay.
The Society Library, by the way, does do that. They take actual quotes from people and luminaries and then fact check the quotes. But we're all about just getting to the answer. But it's good to go out there and know what people are saying so that we can phrase it in a way that they would understand.
Okay, the whole comment you had made early on, probably before we started recording about insider baseball, I think is really important for us to know there is one entity out there that keeps a lot of her information, or it's a person that keeps her information behind a paywall. But she's called Gluten Free Watchdog, and she does do testing herself. And she has tested things certified by others as well. So there is some results on that. There's also, all right, what was the other thing I was going to, there's also a survey that was conducted by GIG about all of the marks. And I don't know if they've published it yet. It was done with a surveying company called New Hope. But it was basically, which mark do you recognize? Which mark do you trust? If that were publicly available, if the results of that or some results,
I mean, even if
is that a claim?
Yeah.
Like if it says,
I don't know how heavy a claim is. I guess the question comes, the way I would judge whether or not we should put it in there is that if we get on a bullhorn and announce, okay, so this company has this score and this company has this score, and the person from that company looks at it, and do we think they're going to come back and say, hey, wait a second, we're ranked the most trusted thing, and that is not in your scoring system, and we think that needs to bump up our score. If we think that they wouldn't feel heard if that statement wasn't in there, then I think we need to put it in there. So think of someone who's defending that company. Would they balk at it not being there, or would they say, well, this is a fact-based thing, and we know that's just opinion and it has no basis of fact.
Well, the survey was really, it was trying to measure whether the new certification mark by GFCO was recognizable yet, or getting to be as recognizable as their old mark. The old mark is incredibly recognizable and was copied by everybody as well. So all of these other people would copy it or kind of copy it and confuse people to believe that it was certified. What came out of it was their old mark is still the most recognizable. Their new mark is somewhere in the middle compared to other entities. But the one that came in second was the weirdest thing because it doesn't appear on very many products yet. It's the company, like you wouldn't have seen it So, but people say that they recognize it.
Oh, yeah. So it's a good mark because it feels like,
It
oh, I've
feels
seen
like
that before. I
exactly.
mean, it's funny because it may be similar to another mark in another industry at all, and people think, you know what I'm saying?
I've seen
There's
it
a feeling.
before. I don't
Right,
know
right, right.
how but I know I've seen it before.
It's like when you're voting for
But they
someone, it's like,
couldn't
oh,
have
I've
seen
heard
it
that
before.
name.
Right.
And
And
it's just because you drove past the street that had their name on it or something.
yeah. And so it's just, there's so many of these weird nuances to this. I'm just,
Yeah, so I mean, in that case, I don't know that any of those companies would point to that study saying, "Hey, you left Gully Bot's missing a piece of information, and we should add it," or at least we should wait till they make that complaint on that
right.
one. I would think,
Yeah. Okay.
because it doesn't. Because if you really think about it, it's not great evidence.
Right.
So we might
Right.
wait on that one.
So I'm going to say in, I guess, Telegram, maybe a note to Vicky that says, um,
Also,
we
check out their websites, or
yeah, we can, you know, start by going to their websites and individually putting in the various claims that they make about themselves,
yeah,
because that'll, okay, so I'll just put that in as a good place to start. I'll just say, a good place to start for us is to go to each certification body's website and itemize their claims in terms of what they do. Um, yeah, does that sound right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's good, and we'll also post this video, and you can see
Yeah.
our discussion about it.
I'll just say it's hard to get to um, comments and claims from others, but this is a good starting point. Okay, good. Just making sure so she knows. Yeah, that's going to help me tremendously too, because there
So
are
for that
definitely some claims that are made on
But
each
that
website.
gluten-free watchdog
Yeah.
are her reviews of the products behind the paywall too?
You know, I think there is some kind of report that she did put out there that was, you know, here's what they all claim, because, excuse me. Well, I think this is on one of the other tabs. I did put for each one of them what they claim they test for, or what they claim they will certify, not necessarily test for, but what they will certify.
Right. Yeah.
Below 20 ppm, 15 ppm or below, 10 ppm or below, 5 ppm or less gluten content. That's
Yeah.
the threshold. So those claims are definitely there. And I think she did some testing where she randomly pulled products that were certified by several of these different bodies, did her own testing. And frankly, I think she didn't find anything grossly wrong, which was interesting. But I don't think she still trusts them.
Right.
So she's extremely skeptical about a lot of these, and it seems like her opinion is often these are just schemes. But I think GFCO works with her a little bit more now and communicates with her a little bit more, because just all in the name of transparency.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I think
So
it'd be interesting to have her to, when even before we put this out, or what, have her kind of go and say, are we missing anything on
yeah,
why you should or shouldn't trust these organizations?
yeah, that would be very, very interesting,
Yeah.
because she is as third party, non
Yeah.
bias as you can get. I mean, she has her own biases and her own
Sure.
opinions, as everyone does,
Right.
but
But it's good
she
balancing
has,
bias.
yeah, yeah, and she's got some kind of, it seems, scientific background. I don't know fully
Yeah.
her background, but she does have her own sort of little lab where she does her
Mhm.
testing.
And if she wants to, it'd be interesting also if she wants to contribute any claims, but it would be up to her. We don't want to take any of her behind the paywall content. I don't
Right,
think we would or even need to, but
right.
we'll be conscious of that.
Yeah. Okay, that might be interesting. So I think we just have to lay much more of a groundwork
Yeah.
here.
I wanted
So
to,
that, yeah.
hopefully she'll look at it and say, no, I think y'all got everything except, I'm sure she'll say, they're getting money for, uh, there will be the things that are really, really hard to substantiate, kind of the meta claims that Gulli
Yeah.
Bot may not entertain, but it'll be good to run it out.
Well, they all
Run it by
charge
her.
money. Nobody does this for free.
Right. Yeah. So that would be a,
And most of them don't reveal their prices. I don't even know if GFCO quite reveals prices, but it's based on like a number of factors, usually like how many plants are there to audit, how many products are you trying to certify.
are they all for profit or any of them nonprofits?
GFCO is nonprofit.
Yeah, I think that would be an important thing because they have less of an incentive to.
But do they? I mean, what's nonprofit? Nonprofit, yeah, I think there's a misconception about what nonprofit is. It's really a tax designation, and one would hope that it is a mission driven, profits aren't the number one thing. But if profits aren't a priority, then even a nonprofit organization can go under.
Well, yeah, could definitely go under. What the difference is that for a standard C corporation in their paperwork,
Mhm.
they are opening themselves up to liability to be sued if they do not pursue profit above everything else. So
Really?
they have an yeah, that's a
Huh.
required C corp wording. So basically, if if a company if a you don't even have to be a you don't have to even own stock. Anyone can sue a company, a for-profit company, a standard C corp, if they find reason to believe. I mean, first of all, you can sue anyone for anything, but you could potentially win the suit if you show that they did not
Put profits
give the
first.
shareholders as much profit as possible.
Okay, that is fascinating. Okay, I did not
Now,
know
a lot of
that.
people don't. No one actually sues companies for that very often. So it's not. But for me, it's a mental shift
Mhm.
of they're constantly looking for profit. Now, a nonprofit has to keep the doors open, but they don't. the The individuals in the company, there aren't stockholders breathing down their neck with quarterly reports. I mean, there's someone breathing down their neck to make sure they're self-sustaining, but they don't quite have the same incentives for me. Is what I'm
Mhm.
thinking.
Okay, all right. I can see that. And it would be interesting. I actually don't know. I don't know if they are for profit. I'm kind of assuming that the rest of them are for profit, but
That's probably
that's
something we might add in the put on the
yeah.
pro con thing.
Okay, all right.
No,
I'm gonna
but
put that
that's
in.
true. I mean, there are a lot of nonprofits where the lead, the 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 C level of it get bonuses based upon revenue that's
Hmm,
coming in, and also,
interesting.
and also, so they do have they were some way able to shoehorn the the perverse incentives of standard corporations into a nonprofit. But I think in general, it tends to avoid a little bit of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm getting more and more skeptical about the world.
Mhm.
All right, well, that's an important piece too that we can add, which gives us a little, it might have to do a little investigating. One thing I can do is look on, I think it's called GuideStar,
Yeah. Yeah.
to search for the name to see if they show up as a nonprofit. And then the second thing would be to go to Dun and Bradstreet and look at their database to see what they show up as. So it's not going to be too hard to figure out if they're for or non. If they are not for profit, they probably would have a claim somewhere on their website pretty prominently. We're a 501c3.
I would think so. Yeah.
I'm gonna go double check on GFCO to see if they have that, because that would just be interesting. Um, hmm.
And
Because
there might.
actually GFCO isn't, it's GIG that is their parent company, or because GFCO is considered a program of.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So I mean, so technically, GFCO isn't. a
Oh, so
for-profit.
here
It's not
it
incorporated.
it says the Gluten-Free Certification Organization is a program of the Gluten Intolerance Group, a 501(c)(3) nonprofit,
Yeah.
empowering the gluten-free community since 1974.
Yeah. So there isn't a for-profit entity mixed in there
Correct.
that has.
And they
just the
stated
same
on their
thing.
homepage is kind of what I was just looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. So it should show up on the other ones. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then that's even more helpful. So I probably will end up
Now, how important that is, we probably need to discuss
just right.
compared to everything else.
But once we find all these different claims, then we can start to, like you say, sort, prioritize, weight them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Then the next time you look at this spreadsheet, it's going to be pretty darn full. There's going to be at least 5 or 6 claims per entity, at least. Given just simply these things, the claims that they're making, marketing claims, and actual claims of what they do, and then finding out if they're for profit or nonprofit.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Wow.